to the class. My name is Akello. I'm a grower for Keep Growing Detroit. And so what I focus on is transplant production at the Keep Growing Detroit farm for the Garden Resource Program. And so for you all today, I have a presentation for you all, and also gonna go through demonstrations, but it's mostly gonna be a conversational. I got some slide notes, but most of it will be coming from the head here. And also, I don't know everything, so if you all have any questions, just post them in the chat and kind of keep the conversation going that way. And also that the scope of this lesson, so it's growing indoors, but we're going to be covering mostly transplants, microgreen sprouts, and shoots. We're not going to be focusing on hydroponics or aquaponics, or also producing like adult plants in an indoor setting. So we won't be going over something like, all right, how do we grow a tomato inside our house? We'll be focusing on the seedlings of those plants and growing on a smaller scale than that. And this will be coming from the perspective of a beginner gardener or somebody just getting started off within their household. All right, so I'm gonna pull up the slide for us. And let me get it to, oh, that's the wrong button. There we go. Okay. All right, so yeah, let's just get right into it. So at Keep Growing Detroit, we produce a ton of transplants. Oh, one thing that I also forgot to mention is that, just a quick plug here. Let me see. So let me get my bearings. It's been a moment since I've done a Zoom lesson. Let me see here. I wanted to do a plug because in this lesson, we're also going to be talking about transplants. But I want to make space to save time because we have an extensive presentation on transplants that I did earlier this year with Keep Growing Detroit. So if you go to our Keep Growing Detroit YouTube page and then go to our videos, our second video that we've done, it's all about starting seeds indoors, and this goes over transplants extensively, and it takes place at the farm. And so I won't be like going super in depth with like transplant production because you can find that information there. I will be going over it broadly and trying to spend our time focusing more on microgreens and shoots and such.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Tracy was wondering, were you going to go over like transplanting from outdoors, like bringing herbs inside or bringing plants inside? And if not, maybe she can pop in a question toward the end.
I did not plan on talking about that. Sorry, Tracy. But there might be room for conversation on managing your plants. So let's say you brought something in, but you want to take care of it until you're ready to bring it back outside. There might be room for that conversation. All right, let me go back to the PowerPoint and get right back into it. All right. So what are microgreens and what are sprouts? So microgreens are seedlings of a plant that are edible and very tasty to eat, and they're harvested at a young age. And many times they're harvested with either at 2 to 3 inches and with no true leaf or just one true leaf. And they're typically harvested within 4 to 3 weeks. Sprouts, they're also seedlings that are 1 to 3 inches long, and they take a little less longer than microgreens. And we'll also go through over some examples of that. But basically, microgreens, transplants, sprouts, they're all seedlings. And so they're just harvested at different stages of the life cycle of a plant. Typically, microgreens are grown within soil and also shoots, and they're eaten raw or added to something like a salad or something to spice it up. And sprouts are are something that's grown completely in water or someplace with a high humidity, and you typically don't see them grown within soil. Um, transplants Transplants are adolescent plants that are between 1 month to 2 months old. And so they're started before the planting period. And so our planting period, to go into depth about that. So Michigan's growing season is from May 1st. Our last frost happened somewhere between May 1st and May 31st. And so for your transplants to be ready for that, let's say you have some tomatoes, you would start those a couple of months beforehand so that you can hit the ground running when the frost are finished. And so transplants typically have 2 to 3 true leaves on them, and they have somewhat developed roots. And so just here's a picture of like microgreens. So let's say just from germination, we're not gonna let that plant grow out completely, but we're gonna harvest it at an earlier stage. And transplants, the bread and butter of Keep Growing Detroit, what we normally do, and what most of us are familiar with. And again, we have a transplant class on our YouTube page that you can go to for those that are just joining in. So some of the common microgreens that you can do are listed here. Things that are really easy to get going and could be like a fun project for you to do when you're inside during the cold season. Really easy microgreens to get started with are cilantro, basil, any type of brassica like radishes, collards, or kale. Really easy to do. Some difficult ones include carrots, and then some common varieties of some sprouts that you can also do are alfalfa, clover, wheat. You can grow radishes in the same way that you grow shoots, and also mustard, lentils. There's a ton of types of microgreens and sprouts out there that you can do. Some shoot varieties, there's sunflowers, peas. I really recommend that you try corn out. Corn tastes very interesting as a shoot. I recommend that you try that one out. And I'll talk about how how to germinate these and how to go through them and all of that. And then some common transplants, tomatoes, peppers, really anything can be transplanted, but there are some varieties that like to be transplanted more. I go in depth in that in the YouTube video that we did on transplants. All right, so now we're gonna get into more of the bulk of our lesson. Great. So we talked about some seed selection, so I want to start there. And so, there's tons of options on what you can do to like choose the plant that you want or the type of seed that you want to start. I'm gonna exit out of this to kind of go to the video. So in the PowerPoint here, which I'm gonna make shareable to everybody. All right, navigate. So there's some resources that are going to be posted within the PowerPoint. And so I just want to show this all to you all. These are just many varieties of microgreens. And so there's a sheet out there on Johnny's called Microgreen Varieties. So when you're going down trying to decide what type of microgreen or such that you want to use, try to look up something that shares the description of that plant and also the description of its flavor, so that you can know what you grow that plant out, how you can best use that with knowing how it's going to taste. So like, for example, for this sheet, it lists the variety, the description of it, and then the flavor. And so let's go down to arugula, and it has a purple stem, and it's going to be spicy and nutty, very similar to how arugula tastes when it's a mature plant. Now, to get more in depth of like, okay, you know what you want to get, let's try to price this out. To give you all some tips on ordering seeds or trying to find like the best price for your budget. Don't start any hybrid seeds for microgreen planting. They will cost you a lot more. Always go for open pollinated seeds or heirloom seeds because they're always going to be cheaper. Hybrid seeds, you might see like an F1 sign right next to the name of that plant. It's basically a copyrighted seed, so it will most likely cost you more. And also for the purposes of microgreens, you need a couple of more seeds than you normally would if you're just trying to germinate one transplant. Like for one transplant, you need one seed. For microgreens, you need probably like 50 plus seeds, depending on the size of the tray. So you want to be frugal in that way. And so just to give you an example of that, so let's say I'm gonna go here on Johnny's and I'm just gonna look up some collards. This is Johnny's Selected Seeds, a company that we source seeds from the Garden Research Program, one of the many companies we use. So let's say we got, and T, if there's anything on the chat that you want me to look at, just shout it out to me and I'll get to it.
Yeah, Ruth just popped in a question. I was just gonna wait for a second, but I didn't quite understand. Maybe you can take a look. It said which green sprout at 65. Kel was in 75 list, but I was toggling back and forth. I didn't see your list.
I can go back to the sheet. I gotcha. I don't quite know what she means. But here, I can post this in the chat so that people can look at it for themselves.
All right, cool. That's a good option.
So there you are. Here's the sheet so that you all can see it for yourself. Let me get back to the collards example. So let's say I want to go buy some collards that I want to start for microgreens. So this right here, this F1 means that it's a hybrid plant. And so if I click on it, I go down and check out the price so one thing you want to first look at, first and foremost, is the average amount of seeds per pound. And so for this type of variety of collards, it's 85,000 seeds. And so for 85,000 seeds for 1 pound, that's almost $300 for that. And then if you're looking for like a smaller amount, ounces, to figure out that amount, you would divide pounds into ounces. To convert that, you would divide that 85 by 16, and that would tell you how many seeds you would have for an ounce. And for that amount, that would cost you $30. And so to compare that to a open pollinated variety of kale, yeah, let me see if Johnny has one available. When I was looking on here, they didn't have it, so they don't have the prices for their open pollinated ones. So you have to go to a different website. I recommend that you check different websites when you're trying to source your seeds. So I'm gonna go here on Fedco Seeds. And so a variety that we typically use is either Vates or Champions. And so I'm gonna click on Champion. Actually, let me do Vates because they have a pound here. So let me make sure that that conversion is right. Because I'm not remembering off the top of my head. Okay, so basically this is how much a pound of collards of collard vates cost at Bedco Seeds. So that would be $16 compared to that hybrid variety, which was $300. So so just do your pricing out that way. Take just take a closer look at it, and if collard seeds, they vary from either you can have 85,000 seeds to like 100,000 seeds per pound. It really depends on how well that plant has done. But here you can see that you're instantly saving money by going with the open pollinated variety.
Hey, let's talk about that for a sec.
Yes,
So
I'm looking
why?
at the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why is there a huge difference? Because the hybrid, well, simply because it's in hybrids. So it's a new variety, and it's a copywritten variety that's like patented and whatnot. And so, and it also the hybrid varieties, they come with a couple more benefits like disease resistances. They're more uniform in growth, so they're more commercialized. They're easier for commercialized farms to kind of grow them better. But open pollinated, let's see. So not necessarily. So I'm gonna get to these questions about the seeds here. So
Yeah, a lot of people confuse that hybrid from GMO.
so hybrid and GMO, these aren't. So you can still be you could be a hybrid plant and also a organic plant. Okay. So that's not where the difference is. The difference is in with their genetics, and not in that not their genetics, pardon me, in how they're saved. So with the hybrid plant, you have people naturally propagating plants, and that they're mixing two certain varieties together to get that hybrid plant. It's not a
And people have been doing that from time
right.
immemorial. Yeah.
It's all normal. And then an open pollinated or an heirloom plant is a plant that's basically older. So its genetic history has been formed like 50 years ago to 100 years ago. It's just an older plant. It's an older plant strain. And then a hybrid plant is a newer plant strain, but that's also been tailored to have disease resistances, X amount of differences, not X amount of differences, like it grows uniformly. So it's not a difference in that it's GMO or anything like that. It's just which species of seeds will germinate. We're going to get to that question. But understand that when you're sourcing your seeds for something like microgreens or whatnot, you can just go with open pollinated and heirloom varieties. That's the takeaway I want you all to have from this. It's going to be a lot cheaper in the long run. And also, you're more likely, if we're talking about seed saving here, you can seed save from open pollinated and heirloom seeds a lot easier than you can from hybrid seeds. So let's get back to the PowerPoint here. Oh, let's see. All right. So I'm gonna get to this one really quickly. Well, so how do we manage the growth of our plants? So basically, for a seed to germinate, you're gonna need water and heat, a good source of heat, a heat between 65 and 75 degrees. And then with just basically those two things, a seed will germinate, meaning that it will break its seed coat and the radicle will start to grow using the energy that the seed had along with it. Now, once the radicle emerges, it's going to start to reach for sunlight. And so if you don't have adequate sunlight, that embryo or that plant is going to continue to stretch and grow and reach for sunlight until it reaches it or it runs out of energy. And so it's important that we have adequate sunlight. And then once your plant gets that sunlight, it can really start to grow properly and then develop its roots and start to do all the things that it does. So kind of like trying to understand these parts individually. So you need water and heat. I like to break it down and kind of try to highlight those individual things that each of these things do. So they all work together, but for me, water, it moves the nutrients. It carries the nutrients within the plant. The heat encourages the plant to grow. And then the sunlight really helps manage all of those different systems that are happening within the plant so that they happen correctly. And so once the plant has the adequate sunlight, and then also like the nutrients would be the soil, or it could be some type of input that you add to the plant. We'll talk about that in depth in a little bit.
Hey, I think this is what Ruth was talking about here with the germination temps. And she was saying kale is germinating at 75, but she considers kale a green along with turnips probably. What's the difference there when you're saying greens are germinating at 65, kale is germinating at 75?
So greens, I mean more like lettuces. So I would put like lettuces, spinach within that category.
Got it.
Yeah.
There you go, Ruth.
And also with brassicas, that would be kale repeated, but also like cabbages, collards, broccoli. They all enjoy germinating at a 75-degree temp.
Got it.
But so once you have like water, heat, nutrients, and air in balance, you can really grow your plants very well. And then we'll talk about management once we get over here and talk about the things that we have on the table. But management, the things that you're going to be managing, you need to manage how much water you're going to be adding to your plants, the temperature, making sure that that's consistent. A nice temperature to have your plants at is between 65 and 75 degrees. Anything above, and it's not going to be good for the plant health. They're going to dry out a lot quickly. Anything below, and growth won't be encouraged. Also, when you're creating your schedule, you want to check for pests, and you also want to, check for check how your growth is happening, so that you know when you can harvest. And so we talked about seed selections and all of that.
So question, the folks who are getting the kits or the things that we're sending out for folks to purchase, they have the heating mat in there. So the heating mat will allow you to control that temperature like that, right?
So the heating mat is set at it's going to be at a certain temperature. So so you plug in the heat mat and it will automatically go to, it's going to be in a range from like 65 to 75.
Okay.
So that's something they won't have to worry about. You can purchase heat mats that let you control the amount of heat. All right. So let's see. So we're going to talk about the individual types of sprouts. Yeah. So reading through the questions there. One second, I'll break it down. Let me make sure I'm following my notes. So let me backtrack a little bit before I get into here to go into back to control my sheet. So to go a little bit in depth about sunlight, and I'll also talk about air and talk about water again. So with sunlight, plants need between 12 to 16 hours of sunlight per day. And they also need about 8 hours of darkness. And depending on your setup, you want to take into account where that sunlight is coming from, how much of it you have within that area, and if it's adequate or not. A sign that of if sunlight is adequate to the plants, you can look at them and see if they're stretching or if they're leaning in a certain direction. So let's see if we can quickly do this one right here. So I got some beets in here.
Hey, Akello, would you mind
Yes.
maybe stopping your screen share for a second and we can make your picture really big?
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I completely forgot about that. So here I got some beet plants that I started for this class. And so to know if your sunlight is adequate or not, once they start to emerge, they'll start to kind of point towards where the sunlight is good. And a good sign is if the plants are pointing directly up. So you can see that these are pointing to the side, which my window is at. And so before I had my grow light set up, the sunlight was mostly the only thing they got. So when you are starting your plants, some of them need darkness. So like these beets, they need a little bit of darkness while they're first germinating, but once they emerge from that seed coat, they're gonna need sunlight. So if you're setting up your systems and your operations, you wanna make sure that you have your lights set up for these once they germinate so that they can grow straight up. And in terms of like light spectrum, and when you're like purchasing lights or looking for something like that, you just want to go for not just basic LED lights, but you want to buy LED lights that are specific to growing.
And so this is the big question: which lights to buy? Everybody says something different.
Everybody says. Yeah. So you basically just want to buy some lights that are, and you all won't be able to read this, but this is for me to read off to you. You just want to look for the labels that just say plant grow lights, not regular shop lights or anything like that, to just be simple on yourself. You want to make sure that they line up with the size of shop lights that you have so that they match. And then another sign here, and I have linked in this presentation a explanation on grow lights. Not an explanation on grow lights, but an explanation of light and how it plays into a plant and how to understand it. But I don't know if y'all can really see that, but here just shows the spectrum of light that this light bulb has the capacity of. So plant needs blue light, all the way to red light, and it kind of looks like a rainbow going from blue to green to yellow to orange and red. And so a plant needs all of that to grow successfully. And so sunlight naturally has all spectrums of light. And so this light bulb here is just, it's an addition to sunlight. So if you can have natural sunlight, give it to your plants. But if you don't, you can buy this to supplement that. And and so you just want to look for something that says grow lights. There are different colors that grow lights come in. There's like blue light, white light, and then red light. You can just go for the white light or red light for your larger plants. The blue light, I believe, is for like smaller plants at a earlier stage in their life cycle. But white light will get you through what you're doing here for microgreens and transplants.
Did you see Mama Hanifa's question in there?
Oh, hey, Mama Hanifa.
For folks on Facebook, Mama Hanifa asks, is the T5 rated have nothing to do with the spectrum then?
So here, replace. No, that's for the size of the light bulb, I believe. So that's for like the type of shop lights there. So like this one right here, this one says like T8 and T12. So this is specific to the shop lights. So you want to make sure that whatever shop light you're buying fits that.
Okay. All right. Then DJ had a question in there. So I'm just repeating the question because the folks on Facebook can't see the question, and then the folks in the recording can't. So just if you're answering the question, let's try to repeat it. I'm sort of trying to get in the habit of that. What about smart light bulbs that have a plant setting? Do those work? Technically, I don't think they said plant grow lights. So have you seen those that she's talking about?
So if they have a plant setting to, I don't know what their specific, things they mentioned on that light you're saying, but if it's a plant setting on that light, then it should be good for the plants to use. If it's good practices, I don't think they would be advertising that light bulb would work for plants if it doesn't. But take a look at the finer print and the details. And each light, if they're saying that they're good for like plants, they should be sharing the spectrum of like a blue to red. And so if you see that and it has more information on that, that's a very good telltale sign that this is for plants or that it will work for plants. LED lights, they're okay, but they won't supply the plants with what they need to grow. So you want to make sure that you get something that's specific to growing your plants. I believe like LED lights, they don't quite hit the spectrum of like, there's a range of like, you want to have like 450, and I'm forgetting the added on part of like the lumens or whatnot. LED lights doesn't really hit that for plants. And so plants need to be between like 400, 100 to 600 to 6,000. So like 4,000 to 6,000, that's like the spectrum that's good for plants, or lumens that are good for plants. LED lights don't really provide that. Yeah, so depending on the type of plants that you're growing, so if you're doing it for vegetation, just like the leaf of the plant, do it for that. If you're trying to get something to fruit or flower, then you would set them to your bloom setting if they have that. All right, I'm gonna talk about airflow. So, so for air, you can basically, I'm gonna bring down my fan down here. But for airflow, you just wanna make sure that the air is not stagnant. And so when the air is stagnant, when you're growing plants and when there's water, well, actually the main thing that you wanna focus on is water. Because in some cases, there's like already some type of microorganism within the soil living there, or whatever media that's living there. And so once that gets some water, then it can start to activate. And once it also has heat, it starts to activate. And so to kind of keep that pressure down, you want to have airflow. So airflow to help dry out the soil and to suppress the growth of those other organisms. And so you just want to have, if you have like a fan or something, you want to keep it at a low setting and give it some distance between your plants. You can know if your airflow is too close, if your plants are drying out too much, and that if you see your plants kind of like, feathering or being blown a little bit, then that means that it's a bit too close to your plant. So you want to give it a good distance so that you can just feel it in the air, but it's not something that's really going to push your plants or anything like that. And we'll also talk about troubleshooting with diseases and other pressures. And we'll also talk about water once I do my demonstration. So let's get back to the PowerPoint. Yes, so Joanne, sorry, to really get in depth with the question of which plants am I planting for next season and the timing in our transplant class. So what I'm going to do for you is post that. Oh, let me see. I'm gonna post that link there. And I can talk about briefly about which plants are good for right now, or well, I have, but I can revisit that.
That class was pretty in depth, and we'll likely do it again in early spring. I think me
It's
and
class would be a long
Akello,
time. Yeah.
yeah, me and Akello been talking about how to support more people growing transplants. So we may roll out some kind of series or something like that, some type of club, just to get more people growing transplants in the city.
All right. So I'm gonna try to push through so that we can get to the demonstration phase. We do have a cutoff time of 2:30, and want to be respectful of everybody's time. Some things I'm gonna not speed through, but briefly talk about because they are very straightforward. So there are those varieties, well, there are those types of seedlings that are called sprouts. And so like here, this is like a salad mix right here. And so for sprouts, these are plants that you can start without soil. All you need is just water. And if I were to start these right here, and this is the mix, it has alfalfa, broccoli, clover, and radish. Let me see if I got it right here. So some of the sprouts listed right here, some of the common sprouts. So you can mix and match your sprouts to kind of give you something different. And so if you wanted to start these sprouts, put them inside of a jar, fill it up with water, let it sit overnight. And then you would pour out some of the water. And let me stop looking at the sheet. So what I would do here, fill it up overnight, let the seeds soak up some water, and then you would empty out that water once you come back and check on it. And then letting it sit each time. So the plant is gonna suck up some water, you're gonna pour that out, and you wanna make sure that you have a mesh or some cloth on top of this so that all the water isn't all the humidity isn't completely escaping. And so what you're gonna see in sprouts, they sprout very quickly, that they're gonna really start to grow. And listed here, I have the examples or the instructions on what you can do to get your sprouts to go to sprout. And it's basically just a filling up, draining, and then rinsing the seeds until they're at the size that you want them to be. To really get these to grow successfully, you want to make sure that you have new seeds. So seed that's not too old, seed that's old will typically have more germination issues. Now
that goes to Tish's question in there. And I kind of answered it in there, but she was asking for the benefit of Facebook too. Like, can you just get some, some beans that you had in your cupboard, and sprout those? And I said, yeah,
yeah.
but it probably have a less germination rate. So that's kind of what you were just saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me trying to look at the chat right now.
Yeah, there's a couple questions here popping up.
It's not letting me view it. All right.
Would you like me to ask them for you?
Yes, please.
Okay. So then Tish also asks, is it okay to grow sprouts in a clear plastic container, or is glass preferred?
Clear is okay. Clear is okay.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I want to share, like if you have like a clear container, like it doesn't have to be like a little small jar or anything like that. You can have like a big open tray, like you would say food in. And if it's
Okay.
plastic, you could drill holes in it, and that depends on like the size of your seeds. So don't make holes that are bigger than the size of your seeds, so that when you're like adding water to it and so that you can drain it better, since you have holes in the bottom, you could submerge that into a bigger tray. And so you're getting your water, you can let it sit there for however long you need it. And then once it's time for those plants to drain, you can take your seeds out with that tray, drain it some, and so they're submerged. And so this is like it would be a quicker process and a process that you could scale up instead of having it like within the jar and you have to do like a couple of seeds at a time. And it would be a bit more spread out. So you have more airflow, so less diseases if there's anything like that growing on your seeds. And and they're not on top of each other.
Yeah.
And also, if you don't want to eat the seeds, then you can just cut them off there.
Okay. And then Monty was asking, do you let the seeds sit in the dark to germinate? Or do you want to put them near a windowsill when you start
Sprouts,
them
you
out?
can put these by windowsills. These can also go under the grow lights. Now, these don't have to be in the dark. Well, they would prefer to be in the light.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm having troubles pulling up the chat.
The
So
chat,
trying to see
something
that.
weird going on.
There we go. I got it.
Okay, so we're then at where can I get a sprout seed mix? Do I just get a pack of whatever seeds I want? She said she did find some microgreens at Amazon, but not the sprout mixes. Got any advice on where to get is that those ones you pulled up at Johnny's?
Right. So this right here is this seed pack. This is Lake Valley Organics. This is a donated seed that we typically get donated to Keep Growing Detroit. So, and in years past, like pre-COVID, we would have these available at our seed distribution in our donated section for people to pick up.
Yeah.
So they're not hard to come by, this particular mix, if you're looking for it. So you could search Lake Valley and then take a look at their sprout selection or microgreen selection. And this one right here, and you can make any type of mix that you want with your, if you're mixing like microgreens or mixing sprouts for shoots, but you just want to be mindful of those germination periods. So like some seeds might take longer than others. And so you just have to try to match those up, get things that are nice and similar in their start dates or in how long they take. Or as you work through your experience with that seeds, just keep note of how long it takes for that plant to germinate within your system.
All right. All right. Got a couple more questions and then we'll let you keep going. And don't worry too much about the time. The Zoom will go longer than the 2:30 if we need it.
Okay.
Any advice on molding in the sprout jars? So that's a common issue Heidi brought up.
Yeah. So within the sprout jars, so this could be an issue of, where is that spore coming from? Spores, they're just in the air sometimes, and it just happens. Really, the thing that we can do is prevent their environment from being ideal. So you do want to make sure that you have airflow and that you're not having your plants being submerged in water too long or having water stick around too long within that jar. So that's why I recommend kind of spreading it out some. So like using a larger container, a plastic container that you can have holes in, that you can have more airflow in. With the jar, it's just coming in one way. And when they're stacked on top of each other, it's really going to take a longer time for those things to dry out. And so if you spread out, increase the space that you're using, that should help mitigate that issue of spores or mold popping up within your plants. And sometimes it could be a case that they're just there too long. So that might be like, oh, they were ready to be harvested a little bit earlier, but instead you didn't get to them soon enough and they started to rot.
That makes sense. Now I have seen people like, washing them off consistently. Is that something you need to do or advise?
So, well, washing them off, I don't think that's something that you need to do. but it's just a matter of, submerging them in water, letting the seed soak that up, then draining that water. That's the cycle. And you do that until your plants grow to the size that you want them to grow into. But like when you do that, you want to make sure that, that they somewhat dry out so that diseases don't grow or mold doesn't grow or fungi.
Yep. Again, another question about the seeds at the grocery store can be germinated. I'm not sure what you mean when you say shakes/seeds on that question. If you want to clarify, how do you get rid of fruit flies is a big one.
How do you get rid of fruit flies? Yeah. So fruit flies, they're gonna be, and just like any other flies that like to be on top of your trays, or sometimes they like to be inside of house plants, and you kind of see those flies flying around, and you're like, where are they coming from? They're living on that layer of soil, and this is a result of overwatering. So you wanna manage your water better, or lessen how much water you put on your plants, or make sure that that soil is, or at least that top layer is drying out, because that's where that pest is going to be. And in terms of fruit flies, so fruit flies are attracted to smell. So I don't know, well, if they mean like fruit flies exactly, because fruit flies can be brought from like other reasons for like rots, but there is a specific bug that is attracted to moist soil and also like algae buildup. And so by managing how you water your plants a little bit better, by just watering it a little bit less, you can mitigate that plant. Hopefully that answers that question. And we'll talk about starting shoots and microgreens right now. So am I on the screen share for?
It says, yeah, soil is mixed, and that soil is mixed. You can buy the mix already prepared, or you can prepare it with the compost peat moss. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. So that's what we're about to talk about right now. All right. So there's many types of mixes you can do. You can add compost to your mix sometimes. You can do just straight peat moss or perlite, or you could do straight peat moss. There's many options. What you want to make sure is that you're working with material that doesn't have disease and has the least amount of weed seeds. So you want to start off with sterile, a sterile media mix. And so this is just one of the options you can do. With compost, you want to be on the lookout for weed seeds. It's just a natural part. Some weed seeds make it through. But like understand that, or to mitigate that, you just want to know what the actual plant that you're planting, what that true leaf or what that cotyledon leaf will look like, so that you can weed out whatever weed grows. Yeah, so I'm gonna demonstrate, do my best to demonstrate and give you a good angle so you can see. Doing a mix. So you kind of want to have like a mixing bucket for you to like put your soil in before you put them into your tray. And I'm just gonna take a few. Right here, I'm using some Sungrow. This is the same people that make the sunshine mix that we use for the transplants. And this just basically has, it's not too different from our sunshine mix, where that it's peat moss and perlite, and then a couple other nutrients that help with drainage and holding water.
I just stopped your share so people could see what you were doing.
Right. My
There you
bad.
go. No, it's okay. That's why I'm your DJ right now, Akello. Mixing it up for you.
Shout out to T. So, so I'm just gonna fill this a little bit. And an important part. So when you're you know, when you want to add some nutrients or something like this to your soil mix, it's best that you add the nutrients at this point when you're just mixing with your plants or when you're just starting. So like, let's say for example, if you have like some fish emulsion that you want to add to your um, to your microgreens or to your transplants. Well, this is specific to microgreens because if you add fish emulsion, which is a type of nutrients that adds some nitrogen, you can kind of affect the taste of your plant because fish has a very strong odor. And so you want to be mindful of how you add that to your microgreens, or if you're using that as a nutrient. If I were to add something like blood meal or fish emulsion, not fish emulsion, blood meal or worm castings, or any other type of rock nutrients, I would add it in at this part right here. I would mix it in. I would try to avoid doing things like a foliar spray on top of your microgreens. So vegan nutrients, so you can use compost. Compost works well. And then you can use any other type of nutrients like kelp, or you could use potash or rock phosphate, any other type of mineral works well here. Compost will be very straightforward nutrients to add to your plant. So once you got your nutrients mixed in or what you want, then of course you can also compost your media mix once you've harvested your plants and you're finished with those. Oh. And then at this point, you also want to mix in your water. And when you're mixing your media and getting that ready to test and see if you have like the right amount of water, you want to just squeeze what you have in your hand. And if you got water that starts to come out, starts to drip from your hand, then you got like too much water, so you might want to add some more soil or peat moss or whatever you're using so that it's not totally soaked. You just want a nice moist soil mix, and you add water at this point so that it will be so that you're not dislodging your plants and that they have someplace kind of sticky to lay on. So like when you put your seeds down, they'll just stop in place and they'll be there. It's okay if you use tap water. It's okay if you filter your water. It's really up to you. It's not going to affect the outcome of your plants.
Mm-hmm. Hey, while you're mixing that, can you talk a little bit about, Joanne was asking, maybe she's a vegan. She's wondering if there are any other vegan nutrients that you can slide in there. Is compost enough? Any other nutrients you want to call out that you usually use?
So I want to add that nutrients at this stage of the plant. So let's say you got your peat moss and or whatnot, whatever starter you're using, either it's some soil or some other type of mix or compost. Really, these plants are going to be in here for probably 3 or 4 weeks, or maybe even 2 weeks. So these plants, they don't really spend that long inside of the trays. So that's what you're accounting for. So if your plants are in there longer, say they're like transplants or something like that, which are in there for like months, then you're going to be adding nutrients because they're going to be, the soil is going to be spent because the plant is using that for a longer period. When they're within the trays like this for just a couple of weeks, you don't really need to add that much nutrients because they're living off of that, the embryo that the plant gave them, and then the small nutrients that are already within the peat moss or the compost that you added. Now, some other types of nutrients that you can use. Vegan nutrients, you know, um, these are, you know, blood meal or fish emulsion. These are all still natural foods for the plant to use as nutrients. Now, you know, they're going to be okay for the plants, but it's something else that you can use for you personally. If you're a vegan, you can use your minerals, which come from the earth. So things like, so like kelp, you can use, you can use like rock phosphate, you can use different other minerals that come from the earth.
So if you get a mix that's already made at the store, right now you're putting together a mix, you add compost to that too, or
You can add compost to it if you want.
okay.
I would say like things I started right here, like they did just well with just starting within the mix as is. Now, if you see like nutrient deficiencies starting to pop up from like your experiments, then you might want to look into, okay, I need to add, you know, worm castings or use some type of blood meal or use compost. You know, there are many other minerals out there that you can use. So, while you're mixing, he mentioned some of the different things that people are getting with the giveaway that we're doing. And so when I'm filling this, I know that my plants aren't going to need a lot of soil because they're just seedlings and their roots won't be super well developed. So I'm going to put about an inch to maybe 2 inches of soil in this tray.
Hey, while you're filling that, Linnell had a question about the compost. Are we talking about just compost that you made outside? Like, are you feeling like there's gonna be bugs in my house? Like, what's going on? She said, you know, she was a little bit concerned about bugs using just compost from outside, or are you talking about compost that's already bagged from the store, or?
Well, I am talking about compost. Now, if you do have those concerns with compost, you know, there's always going to be, you know, compost is living. So now if your compost has bugs in it, or if you want to use your compost from outside, just make sure that you screen it well so that you're not bringing those things in it and that you're just bringing in the, you know, what you want.
And then one more question that was further up a little bit was just to clarify, when you're saying beets, you're talking beet greens, not the actual beets. You wouldn't be growing beets inside.
I'm talking about beet seeds and starting those as microgreens.
Yeah. So we're just talking about the leaves, right? Yep. Okay. That was a question up top. You guys keep the questions flowing as he's mixing it up. So what you use, is that the cocoa core that we got?
So I started some with the cocoa core. I started my example here with the cocoa core.
Aha.
Some of our donated sunflower seeds. Now, germination is not perfect in here. We'll talk about some of the troubleshooting things once I get into that example, but the cocoa core works well. It is a bit heavier.
Did you mix it with the compost from the farm?
I did straight did cocoa core.
Straight cocoa core. Okay. So those who are getting a kit, or if you see the kit provided, we had about this block of cocoa cores or soil mix because it was really easy to transport. I'll shoot the link in the chat box now for those. So you can
So like
see
if
that.
you are using cocoa core like so, this one right here, the instructions are just to submerge this in water for, and then once it sponges up the water, then it'll be ready to use. And but like if we see here, for example, I got some from the farm. So this was just a piece of cocoa cord that I broke up and then added and used for one of our examples. So
Awesome.
once you got your soil laid down for your plants, add a little bit more, kind of smooth it out, make it nice and even, and make it nice and level for your plants. Give it a little bit of a press down. You don't want to press and make it compact like yet. And so for on that on the PowerPoint, it listed that depending on the size of the seeds, for like smaller seeds, we need about 10 to 12 seeds per inch. And then for larger seeds, you need about, let me see on the sheet. For larger seeds, you would need about 6 to 8 inches. You need about 6 to 8 seeds per inch. And then for smaller seeds, you need about 10 to 12 seeds per inch for the little ones.
Mhm. Hey, while you're seeding that, couple questions here on coming back to those bugs. Would use neem oil at this stage? Once they're sprout up, would you use neem oil as the babies to prevent the
Would use,
flies?
well, it depends on what the pest is. But the first thing that you want to do, you want to take a look at your management practices. Like you want to see if there's anything that you can change there to address the issue. Neem oil is something that's kind of a reaction, so that's something that you're doing to address the problem. It's not like the foundation issue. So that's what you want to look at first.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood the question from Marita there. She was wondering, does neem oil help with fungus gnats or fruit flies?
It does. It's a general insecticide, and so yes, it will help with those. But I encourage that when you do apply neem oil, that you make sure that you dilute it, because if you have too much neem oil on your application, it could damage the plants. Be too thick for them, it can stop them from breathing. So you just want to make sure that you dilute that to the right amount so that you're just affecting those bugs.
And how about the diatomaceous earth at this point? Would you?
No, it's not going to be needed for this. So the type of pest we will see here, so the diatomaceous, it's a type of mineral that's, it's really sharp. So when a bug goes over it, it damages their skeleton. And so that's how it
Those for crawling
right.
bugs.
We're at that scale, like typically you shouldn't see that type of issue with microgreens. That's something that's more like a field application. So it's not within not within the scope of like type of insecticide that would be used for microgreens. Like neem oil, or that would be something more here.
All right.
Typically, you don't really see that many bugs show up when you're doing microgreen production, especially when you're inside. When you're outside, you might see some other stuff, like in a greenhouse setting.
Yeah. Shaylin mentioned earlier when they were talking about the fruit flies or gnats or whatever they are, that maybe the old school vinegar traps just around your plants might help. I don't know if you've done that before. She said, would that help?
Yeah, that would definitely help too. So I got I don't know if you can see it, but I got some radishes seeds laid out here, kind of nicely spaced out. One thing that you can do to kind of speed up your germination, I like to do this with larger seeds. So seeds that like aren't as small as our brassicas, like collards, kale, if you're familiar with them. I like to germinate bigger seeds, so seeds like radishes, sunflower seeds, um, uh, peas. So I like to
Mhm.
soak those overnight. And so that's going to help speed up that germination period and also help increase our germination rate before I put them down here on top of the seed pad. It's just something that you can optionally do. It's going to help you not have to water them so much.
Yep. And just to, just to further clarify, if folks are just joining us, we're not growing radishes with those seeds you drop. We're growing radish leaves, right?
Right.
So those are what you call the microgreens. So there may be some new gardeners or folks who aren't familiar with microgreens. I just wanted to mention that.
So like, yeah, within this class, we're talking about some microgreens, shoots, even some of the transplants, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and how you can use this in your system. The microgreens and the shoots and the sprouts, they're all the seedlings of these adult plants. So when I talk about radishes or beets, I'm talking about beets that are like a couple weeks old that still have their cotyledon leaf on them, that are still pretty small. I'm not talking about like the adult beets like that are huge.
Mhm.
I mean,
So you
you
throw it in a
get the
salad
size
or throw it on a sandwich or something like that as added nutrients in your diet.
right. And so to water this in, I have a little spray um, breaker water bottle. You can use a spray bottle or you can use a mister.
Wait, did you make that?
Did I make this?
That's kind of cool.
So normally it has like a little straw right here, but it still works the same way where I can pour it and spray out water.
Ooh, ah.
But it doesn't have to be fancy. You can use like a cup to get these water. You just want to make sure that you don't overwater. And signs of overwatering is where you start to see algae build up, where you see water that's like really, that hasn't gone away yet, hasn't dried up yet. And so you can kind of see if a plant is nicely watered by looking at the weight of it or picking it up, feeling the weight of that flat. This one is kind of decently heavy. And an important part here, so you got your plants watered. Now I'm gonna cover it up with with some more soil. You can use other things like vermiculite, or you can use some peat moss. You just want to cover up your plants so that they can stay a little bit more moist.
Mhm.
Now, when you're covering your plants,
Can you hold it up a little bit higher, Kello? There we go. Boom.
you don't want to put too much soil on top of these, because if you put too much soil, that's gonna inhibit the growth of the plant. So if your seed is, you don't want to put like 3 times as much soil on top of there. Like you want to, like however size your seed is, you just want to put like that size of your seed or less than that on top of your plants so that it's easier for these to germinate. It's like a thin layer so that your plants don't have to work too hard to to break through that layer of soil. You're just trying to put that on there just to keep them moist.
Mm-hmm.
And then from here, there's other things that you can do. This is just a lid for your plants that has a little opening that you can open and close to kind of get air circulation within there. And so you're going to put that on top to help your plants help capture moisture. And, and then you want to close it, and so that that moisture is locked in. You want to make sure that that goes on top of a heat mat. And this is pretty much like the first step. So when you're checking your plants, you're going to take this off. You're going to let some air circulate in there every now and then. You don't want to keep it on all the time. But once you see your plants start to germinate and break through the seed coat, that's when you want to turn on your lights and then take that off. So once plants have started to germinate, you don't really need this anymore for that one. You can use it for something else. But you wanna, this is basically something to help increase the germination rate. And then also you wanna press down a little bit on those seeds once you put them in there, just so that they stay in place. And then you have that seed to soil connection.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing to, yep, questions?
There's a couple questions piling up. I don't know if you want to take them now or you want to wait a sec. Got you know, we talked about, yeah, fans would help with the bug issue a little bit and the mold issue, right? Would the fans help was the question. I think you would say, yeah. Can you water the trays from the bottom and have the soil absorb the water from the bottom to the top? So that's
you could definitely do that as long as your tray has holes in it.
And then okay, so one question, thanks for that suggestion, Ruth. She mentioned using a soap bottle that's been cleaned out as well. And then question, noticing in your setup here, your light is pretty far away from your plant. Is that?
Yeah. So your lights, you can have your lights be a foot to 30 inches away. This is just my setup here for the class. Yeah, so don't think too much about that one.
Okay.
Thank you though for reminding me.
Yep, I dropped the trays in there, Joanne. And then how long are you keeping the lights on once the seeds pop through the soil?
So remember, our plants need about 12 to 16 hours of light per day. And so one thing that people are getting with their kits are timers. And so you can time this to be on during those certain amount of hours. But 12 to 16 hours for your plants.
Okay. And then you said the lights would be about a foot off of your tray there.
30 inches.
Okay. Heidi says in the past, when the sprouts break the soil and grow up and a good amount of dirt comes up with it and it gets all of the tiny sprouts, any help or ideas of how to limit that?
So you can lessen the amount of soil you put on top, and then also you can, depending on like the power of your spray bottle or the power of your water, you can wash off that soil. But the easier way would be just lessening how much soil you put on top of your plants.
Okay. So I know that there's some seeds that need to be in the dark, some seeds need to be in the light. So the ones you're talking about with the sprouts and the microgreens, you said you'd prefer putting light on them at this before they germinate.
I said after they germinate.
Okay. Yeah. Just wanted to double check that.
So there are those seeds that need a dark period. There's let me see, I think I can add that to our sheet.
Yeah, there's a couple people with their hand raised. If you raise your hand, that means I can allow you to talk. If you had a question that maybe you're calling in, you can't use the chat box. Deborah Martin, do you?
Hi, yes. I want to find out where did you buy your light? I need a light.
Oh, I can drop you that link. The link is up in the chat a little bit, but I'll drop the link again in there for you.
Yeah. So I got this light from Home Depot.
Home Depot?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so they
great.
should have like a little grow light section.
Little grow lights.
And if you buy this, for example, like shop lights, they might not come with bulbs, but you can buy the grow light specific bulbs. And so this would be something that you can just add to your setup.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Deborah.
Thank you.
I wanted to get to the question of how long you're going to keep these under. So once your plants grow to the size that you want them to grow to, and you're ready and you need that space for like something else, so you want to start something else under those lights, once they're at the size that you want them to be, where you want to like slow down growth, you don't want them to get any longer, you can just move them to a different spot. They can be like a windowsill or something that still has light, but it doesn't have to be under the direct light. So it's really going to be based on when you're finished with, or where they're at a point where you want them to be. And typically when plants, microgreens like this or sprouts are ready to be harvested once they're 1 inch to 3 inches long.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Arita also had, sorry if I'm not saying your name right, Arita, did you also want to talk? If you want to talk, you can unmute yourself. If that was a mistake, you can just lower your hand.
Try to get this light.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So, all right. So that's kind of hard to put back right now. We'll just wait a little bit. So let's see.
Yep. Deborah, did you have another question? I saw your hand pop back up, or if not, you can lower it. If you leave it up, I'll throw.
So when you are like creating your schedule, you want to be checking your plants at least twice a day, checking them for watering, checking the temperature, checking to make sure that the lights are on and that they'll be on for the amount of time that you need it, if you have them on a timer. But probably if you want to really if you're really focusing on your plants like that, 3 times a day at max, I would say would be a decent schedule. And then if you also have the ability, also checking the humidity. Humidity is really going to come into play with the growth of, other diseases and fungi. So if you have a way to check your humidity of your plants, that would help out as well.
All right,
I'm not quite sure what carbon filters do, but to answer that question, if the place where you're putting your plants are, if they can get to that 65 or 75 degrees, if they can't get there, then you're going to need to supplement your heat. But if they're already that temperature, then you don't need heat mats. And then you also, when you check your soil, when you check the temperature of your soil, so just don't put your hand here to see if it's that warm. You want to, put your thermometer or put your hand here to see what that soil temperature is. And so if that's not your 65 or your 70, then then that might be then you might have to increase the temperature.
All right. Are you about at the end? Are you at the end of your PowerPoint, or should we just open it up for questions? Or
I got a little bit more. Let me see. But I got through the bulk of it.
Okay.
So we talked through this a little bit. Troubleshooting. So if your germination's poor, you want to take a look at the age of your seeds. And then you also want to look at your management practices. Did you overwater? Did you bury the seeds too much? Did they dry out too much? If your plants are leggy, that's going to be a response of the light. So you want to check how much light your plants are getting, and if they're leggy, then that probably means that you need to supplement that light some more. Pests are going to be a result of a mismanagement of water, and then also like smells that come along. So you want to check how you're managing your water and how often you're watering your plants. And then if you need to identifying that pest, what bug it is, and then applying neem oil if that's something that addresses it. For weeds typically might pop up if you're using something like compost. There you might want to change the type of compost that you use or where that compost is sourced from. And then you also want to know what are weeds and what's the thing that you're actually planting, and then address that. Yellowing plants, this could be a sign of a nutrient deficiency or also overwatering. So if it's overwatering, then you know that the soil is typically wet or it's very wet, but if the soil is not wet and you still have yellowing and you have good light, then that's a sign of a nutrient deficiency. Normally you don't see that with the microgreens, they just don't get to that stage yet, but that's something you will see with transplants if there's a nutrients deficiency. So plants need different nutrients at different stages in their life. So the needs of a adolescent transplant is greater than that of a microgreen, which is a smaller, at a shorter stage in their lifestyle, in their life cycle. Root rot, damping off. So this is a type of fungus, and pretty much it will show up. Sometimes it's just living within the soil. All it really needs to activate is just overwatering, and also bad airflow. So you want to increase the air circulation where you're growing, and then also lessen how much water you're watering your plants. And if you have slow germination, this could be that when your seeds pop, so your seeds will pop if there's water and there's heat, but if there's no sunlight, then they'll be slow to germinate. So you want to make sure that you have adequate light, and also seeds might germinate slowly if they're old seeds, and also if they don't have the right amount of temperature. Right amount of temperature, the right temperature.
Right temperature. I think. So I think we're pretty much done. Ashley here had a question on this cocoa core. She said that brick just doesn't come apart from her, for her.
So you want to soak your brick in water, and so the instructions say to soak it in 9 to 10 cups of water. And when the brick is fully hydrated, fluff up with the towel or with your hands, add more water if needed. So you won't be able to break it up when it's like this. You just need to add some water to it, and then it'll be easier to take apart.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Eleanor. And thanks all for joining us. We're kind of I think we're pretty much rounded out with the information and content. Are you feeling good, Akello? And then we can just kind of hang on the line for questions if folks have them, or so if there's any questions about the information you saw today, or just general kind of gardening questions, feel free to pop those in. If you got to take off, we are at our 2:30. Look at that, Akello, perfectly 2:30.
Yeah.
High
I just had a couple of slides of things that I've talked about.
Okay.
One thing I did want to go through, let me just do a screen share of this. So just to show off like different setups. So can you see this right here? It says greenhouse welcome tea.
Yep.
Okay, so I just wanted to show off some different setups.
Wait. I'm sorry. It's right now I see a bunch of pictures of setups. Is that what you're talking about? Okay.
So I don't, some of them might be small. Here we go. So like, this could be your setup for your house, just to kind of show you different examples of what you can do. Let me see if they're still moving now. Wow. All right, computer. All right. So, here we go. Okay. So, you can set up things in a way where there's light around them. Oh, wow, this isn't working well with my computer. It makes me have to go back and forth. But like, this is a typical grower setup for somebody who's like really producing microgreens, where they have just like a shelf that they can easily hang the lights to, attach the lights to, and then have the plants on the bottom. And wow, these must be like some peas or something like that, since they're so tall. But yeah, like this right here is like the grower setup for somebody who's really doing microgreens. But I just recommend that you look up different setups like mine. This is something I just put together for the class, but I might outfit it a bit more. Get some microgreens going for myself. Let me see here. Yeah. Are there any other questions?
I'm just popping in the links. I will also email this out. I'm just popping in links to the items that we put in the kit, and also that you're using today. Give me 2 seconds to pop those in. All right, so that's the heating mat. So you should have a link to the heating mats, the timers. Up the top, there's a link to the lights and the tray. But if you didn't catch it, I will definitely just send an email out after this. Did you see Yvonne's question in there? And there's a couple questions popping up while I was grabbing those links.
I'm looking through right now. I was looking at Shirley's question, Boswell's, about the lavender. With lavender, what I would do, try to find if you're still online, try to find the ideal germination temperature for lavender. And then in combination of soaking that lavender seed, depending on its size, if it's really small, soak it for 3 to 4 hours, and then start it at that ideal germination temperature to try to get that going. To Yanni's question, I'm not sure what the specs on the portable greenhouse you're talking about. Let's see. So for Tracy, if you're still online, yeah, just a nice portable fan. You just want to have some flowing air. Open air is okay if you're all right with open. Well, when you say open air, I'm thinking that you have a window open or something like that. That would also be adequate for your plants. But also the supplemental fan would get them going as well. Trying to get the later questions that might have been missed.
Can I jump in about a question for the kits?
Yep.
While you're reading those is, we did have, and I mentioned in the beginning here, we did have a funding to support 50 kits for people who have been financially impacted by COVID or who are low income. And so once we had exceeded those 50, actually we had got to 66 when I checked it, I removed the option to request from the Zoom registration. So it wouldn't frustrate you that you requested it and you didn't get it, since I knew we were already over the amount that we could offer. So so I'm sorry about that if you didn't get a chance to register for a kit. We're definitely going to try to do this again. It was very popular, so we'll try to get the funding together to maybe do another round of this in the spring for the transplant class. That'd be dope. Maybe. Fingers crossed. um, so yeah, but I will definitely send out the links to purchase. The entire kit was $70. So you know, I can send out the links to purchase the kit that we put together. Yeah, so you want to ask that garage question?
Yeah, you can definitely set this up in your garage. You just want to make sure that it's just warm enough for it. Like, you know, I'm right here in my basement. It's the coldest part of the house. Your garage might be the coldest part of your house, but it's still possible to start your transplants there. You just want to make sure that if there is coldness in your garage, that you just have your heat mats, you know, directly where you need your plants. Yeah, so it really all depends on like how cold your garage is. Oh, hey, Michelle, how's it going? Yeah, so starting microgreens or starting transplants, it's all really going to be straightforward. One thing that I want you to take away is that you just need adequate sunlight, good water in the right amounts, and a heat source, and your plants are going to germinate and grow. An important takeaway, just make sure that you're purchasing open pollinated seeds and heirloom seeds for your growing. They're going to be a lot cheaper. It's easier to do seed saving from them. I would only do hybrid seeds for things like transplants where you don't need to buy a bunch of them. And then if you do want to start with microgreens, start with something easy like things within the brassica family. So like kales, collards, arugula, radishes. And be sure to check out our YouTube channel. I post the link to that earlier. That's where I have the in-depth transplant lesson, which is like 2 hours and 30 minutes. And I believe I also posted in the comment section the link to the PowerPoint that went along with it.
Dope.
That's where you're gonna find in-depth information about how we do the transplants here. Can you now sell sprouts at Eastern Market in the farmers market? People have been selling sprouts at the farmers market for a long time. If that's something that you want to do and that's your stage, then I would contact that farmers market. You can mix the cocoa with the starter seed mix. Yes, you can definitely do that. You can mix it with compost. You can mix it. You can mix it up.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Definitely appreciate everybody for joining us. We do have a couple things coming up next week. We have a cooking with kids class on Monday. If you didn't see the link, that's on the website. And then Thursday is our annual celebration. And we're going to open this thing up so we can see each other. We'll be a meeting style. You'll be able to see some, familiar faces from the GRP. Lots of gardeners in the house, and we'll go through some of the highlights that we were able to accomplish in this crazy year. So thanks for bearing with us with this presentation, and glad that you enjoyed it. We'll stick around for a second if there's anybody that wants to throw questions in the comment. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect from Facebook, but we'll stay here on the Zoom for a sec. And
yeah. Just wanted to answer, Joanne, if you need the PowerPoint, just shoot me an email and I'll get that directly to you. So anybody that needs the PowerPoint, send that to me. Once the because this lesson is going to be loaded onto YouTube. I'll also share the link of the PowerPoint within the comment section there.
You know, Akello, I'm gonna shoot out an email with all of the links to
Hey,
with all the links. So let's put that together. Let's put that.
Okay.
And then Ashaki had asked to put the pics of your setups together. So maybe you can send that to me.
Yep, I can do that as well. Yep. And all I did was just I just Googled indoor growing setups and just pulled them off of there.
Got it. I'm pulling up that YouTube link for you right now. If you go to YouTube and click Keep Growing Detroit, we throw all of our old webinars on there. For now, we're trying to decide, do we leave those up for next year or we're learning this technology thing, but for now they're up probably through the end of the year at least.
Yes, we're so happy that we can help you out, Leslie.
Here's the YouTube link. Boom.
Boom. And the dust is gone.
Take care, Leslie. Thanks, Ashley. Yep. It takes a couple days for us to get it on the YouTube and to get it on our website, but probably be there by early next week.
Yeah, thank you too for hosting.
Yeah, great info, Akello. You did great. Breaking it down, and we got to see your gym setup. I didn't know. Yeah. I'm thinking about getting a little gym set up in my basement. You know, right now I got everything everywhere.
It's a little like that over here too. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, we'll go ahead and close out. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks, Akello.
All right. Peace.
All right. Peace.